Hello and welcome to Indian Express Opinion. Our top story today is the 25th anniversary of the demolition of the Babri Masjid, and I have with me Seema Chishti, who was a witness to that demolition. Seema, tell us, what was that day like? What do you remember of it?
It was a very clear day. It was sunny and the air was, of course, full of anticipation. And it was very clear by that time, given the kind of crowds that were there, the speeches, the provocations and the movement, that something was up. We weren't quite sure.
What time of the morning was this?
This is about 7:30 or so. The whole area was being cleared.
7:30 a.m.
a.m. So there's a bit of area which is right outside the Babri Masjid complex, which is being cleaned up and sorted out. Daris are being laid, and it seemed as if some symbolic construction activity will go on, which had limited court sort of sanction. What was completely unanticipated was that something would happen inside the complex.
But did you know, so you were out there at 7:30 in the morning, but you didn't know that the demolition was planned for that day?
No, I wish I did. No, I didn't know that. But later when we played back our tapes, I was working for a television group called Hindustan Times Television Eyewitness. When we played back the tapes, there were people clearly telling us that just wait till 12 baje, we'll go inside. And because we were just found that like such a superfluous fact, we divert them back to the car seva.
Right.
They say, yes, but you wait, at 12 o'clock we'll go there. And we'd again use questions to move them back to here.
And they would say 12 o'clock on the 6th of December.
On the 6th, this is on the morning of the 6th of December when we were at the barricades talking to the crowds.
Right.
And exactly at 12,
and how
the
many people were there? Was there a large group of people?
And things started at exactly noon. Oh, it was huge. So just next to this kind of central piece, if this is the area we're talking about, at the center is a disputed kind of complex, the Babri Masjid complex.
Okay.
There was what is called the Ramkatha Kunj, which was this assembly ground where all the leaders were there. There was L.K. Advani, there was Murli Manohar Joshi, Uma Bharti, all of these people eventually went there.
And how far away is that, the Ramkatha ground, from
500 meters, about 500 meters, very visible.
Did they come closer to the Babri Masjid complex?
Early in the morning they did a little parikrama of this area across this, which is just outside the disputed complex.
Yes.
And then they proceeded to be seated at the Ramkatha Kunj, where a formal function and meeting went on. And as I was telling you, there was a PA address, a public address system, which had speeches, etc. And at 12 o'clock sharp, it switches to the Ramdhun.
I see.
So clearly and if there was any exhortation or any urging of people to keep quiet, we didn't hear it.
So it sounds like a very well planned,
very meticulously planned exercise. And I think the other big kind of giveaway on the planning was how media people who were there to document things. So you didn't have as many cameras as there are now, but there were a variety of foreign correspondents. There were journalists, there were Hindi journalists from all over India who were there. It was a very smart and a limited operation to completely take us out of there.
So how long did it
immobilize
last?
our documenting.
How long did it last?
The entire destruction?
Yes.
I think 5.5 hours. About 5:30, it seemed as if all was over. There was this kind of huge,
so even when they
dusty, kind of misty thing around what was the Babri Masjid, but it was clear that in about 5.5 hours, it was leveled.
So at the time, let's sort of go backwards. P.V. Narasimha Rao was then the Prime Minister in Delhi. So even when the first blow took place, when the first blow was struck on the Babri Masjid, there could still something have been done.
Completely, because from what the records that you read, Madhav Godbole, the Home Secretary at that time, other political parties, when they heard there was no satellite TV, nothing, I think BBC showed just about 5-10 seconds. Essentially, it was All India Radio, which kept saying that there's a little bit of damage to the domes. So things could have happened and moved. But apparently Narasimha Rao did not take calls. People were told that he was sleeping in that afternoon. So I don't know what transpired in further detail in Delhi. But clearly he was not available for comment or action. But he could have done loads. And Kalyan Singh, the UP Chief Minister, resigns after the 3 domes are brought to the ground.
And Mulayam Singh Yadav, I remember at the time, said कि हम इसमें चिड़िया तक नहीं फड़कने देंगे.
Parinda par nahi phadkayega, which happened when he was Prime Minister in 1990, and he did that quite effectively, generated a lot of resentment, and that's the time when he acquires this title of Mullah Mulayam by the BJP group, because he did not allow anybody to mount the domes and bring it down. This is October 30, but that's 2 years before this, in 1990.
So by 1992, just over 2 years, we see that the masjid is brought down, and you're saying that it was a pre-planned conspiracy.
Yes, and it is something which what I'm stating is essentially anecdotal evidence and things we've put together, but that a conspiracy has been spoken of by the Libraham Commission, which took 17 years to study the facts and came out with a report.
Okay, so Seema, tell us, in these last 25 years, clearly this was a seminal moment in our history since independence. We are in the 70th year of our independence now. How did it change India?
I think it changed India in very many ways. In the question perhaps I should ask myself is what remained unchanged really? I think first and foremost, it was really the partition within the country that people of my generation who grew up well after partition, we didn't have organic links with Pakistan, be they Hindus or Muslims. We didn't have relatives or neighbors who'd left or we hadn't come from there. So for them, it was like a refresher course in what partition could look like. And the establishment...
In what way? Let me stop you there. Okay. In what way was it this kind of a refresher course? The Hindu-Muslim divide.
The entire vitriolic kind of journey that was undertaken, the spots undertaken by the Somnath Rath Yatra, the speeches that were made, and the assertion that was... So, if you were Hindu, you were Indian. And principally because this monument, made on Indian soil with presumably Indian bricks and mortar, was decreed as foreign. So I think the whole thing of somebody who follows a different religion being foreign was firmly planted through a systematic campaign that went all over India.
So the Muslim was foreign and the Hindu was Indian.
Yeah, so it was almost, I mean, there's a very interesting acceptance of diversity in India. I mean, Hindus and Muslims, Christians, Jews sup with each other, but they eat what they eat. But this was the use of religion as a political instrument, perhaps for the first time after Muhammad Ali Jinnah, that we see in 1992 by Mr. L.K. Advani. And we're still kind of seeing the fruits of that tree.
So Mr. Advani led that Rath Yatra across North India. People came out.
And South India as well. There was attempts in North Karnataka to kind of... And may I just kind of... Another thing. There are a lot of kind of monuments and places, including Baba Budangiri near Hubli, etc., which celebrated the fact that Hindus and Muslims both claim them. Either because... It's like the Amarnath caves, that it's also Chhari Muqaddas, it is also a Shivling. That was celebrated. Now that became a point of dispute.
Right.
So what was earlier, yahan sab jate hain, becomes a reason to fight bitterly and to resolve it, to settle it one way or the other.
So when L.K. Advani mounted his chariot or his Rath, it was a Toyota vehicle, I remember, and he drives across the northern sort of Indo-Gangetic plain, and women come out and they do arti in front of this chariot and they sort of touch his feet. So there was a lot of sentiment that was generated. So in effect, sentiment and religiosity was leveraged to do politics.
I would say kind of, it's all this happening in the context of, the Mandal agitation, having raised kind of temperatures, introduced a lot of anxieties. There is economic anxiety because people are fearful of losing their jobs.
After liberalization.
India is opening out. So there are all kinds of, forces at play. You're seeing growth rates at the time of economic stagnation as well, and India is wrestling with that. So in all of this comes this whole big, huge diversion and this huge bid to define India differently, not as per being a citizen of residence, of being an Indian, but of being a Hindu and regarding something or the other as foreign.
So the BJP becomes this big party from 2 seats in 1984. It now gets 88 seats.
Yeah, it gets 90s. It does very well. Yeah. Basically, what the BJP does is through this, it kind of the whole slow climb of the Jan Sangh, which is the predecessor of the BJP, has been about political legitimacy, despite the banning of the RSS after Gandhi's assassination. That happens in part in the mid-60s. They have another phase, which is during the emergency. This is a very decisive phase when they become almost a pole of Indian politics.
So 25
you're with
years
the BJP
later,
or you're against the BJP.
And 25 years later, we have a Prime Minister.
Shades of all of that. And you have a Prime Minister who very actively participated, who almost sees his kind of political genesis or his kind of, he cut his teeth on the Ayodhya movement. So it's quite interesting that is the case.
And the RSS chief, Mohan Bhagwat, no less, has said that there will be a mandir on the disputed side. What do you make of that?
Well, that is another part of this whole kind of disturbing journey in 25 years, because you have a point where there are all these elaborate negotiations happening during Chandrasekhar's premiership, Narasimha Rao's premiership. Now for the RSS chief and the VHP to say we don't need negotiation. So it's only a question of how will we build this temple right there, and there will be no masjid there.
So what
in
happens?
The entire principality. So that in a sense defines the kind of whole mood change that is being attempted and forced down India, which is really a very quickened, feverish pace after the events post 2014.
So in these last 25 years, we've also seen how regional parties like the Samajwadi Party, Mullah Mulayam's party, the BSP, Mayawati's party, they have also won power in Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah, which is what I wanted to come to. So it's not just been a blanket. It's interesting that we have, we have a first majority government in power after 84, now currently there. But it's been a very variegated, interesting journey. Lots have happened. There's been empowerment. There's been this other Dalit story, the other silent revolution, as Christophe Jaffalo puts it. So there's been a lot of things happening, but it just happens that as we speak now today, there is almost kind of the wheel turning full circle, and the coming back of all of this, to not even see it as an act of vandals, but to see it as an act of claiming territory or a place which is rightfully theirs, and it's a very Indian thing to do.
And somehow it seems as if India's grand old party, the Congress party, has been out of this conversation, if you like, sometimes violent, sometimes otherwise. But it's never won power in UP again. And even today, 25 years later, the Congress still hasn't grappled with that question in many ways.
No, I don't know about that, because these 25 years, if you count the United Front phase where they were supporting the government from outside, and they had a 10-year tenure as well. So I think Congress has also said things, because we have a very different Congress post Narasimha Rao. Sonia Gandhi comes out and completely, that's why Narasimha Rao is such an outsider. There's a huge break that the Congress makes with that past. But of course, the corrosions and the acid poured on its support base because of this, the lock opening by Rajiv Gandhi and all left its trace. But that's the problem which any umbrella party which wants the vote of everybody would have in articulating a clear progressive slogan in the face of a majoritarian party which is in power. So sure, they have to deal with things, but I don't think that they're on such a limb. I mean,
you sound kinder about Rajiv Gandhi when he ordered that the locks were opened on the Babri Masjid.
No, that kind of is the reason for why we have the problem in its current form. I mean, I'm not saying that we wouldn't have had the problem at all otherwise, but he invited disaster. He actually opened the locks. It was a very symbolic opening.
So the Congress must come to terms today, 28 years later since the locks were opened?
I think it has already come to terms. They've kind of apologized and moved away from that. Not moved on, but they have to grapple with far more serious questions of which are kind of in a way symbolized by the demolition of the mosque, in which they're trying to do where you question the religion of the vice president of the Congress party, the Amethi MP, and he has to turn around and say, I'm a Shiv Bhakt. So, are you Hindu or are you not?
Gandhi.
So, are you a Hindu or are you not has become a kind of so it's really kind of continuing the Ayodhya debate, right? So if you're a Hindu, you're on, and if you're Muslim, then you are probably anti-Indian.
Well, your eyewitness account is also hugely evocative, Seema. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for talking to us. You've heard this amazing account by Seema Chishti. We will be watching how this story unfolds over the next few weeks, months, perhaps even years. Meanwhile, thank you so much for watching.